Hey guys, this is the second video in the content analysis unit. I want to take a moment to introduce you guys to my dog. His name is Eddie. He's 2 years old. He has no clue what is going on in the world right now. He just thinks that I'm home all the time and he's loving it. He's right now. There he is in the corner. He likes to be in whatever room I'm in. So Eddie, say hi to the kids. Say hi. Yeah, he's pretty lazy. Anyway, we're going to keep on going with how to do content analysis. So in the last video, we talked about what a content analysis is, and you want to analyze trends in spoken, written, or visual communication. What that trend is depends on what your research question is. It could be pessimism in campaign speeches. It could be bias in news media, whatever it is that you're looking to do. And we left off saying that we, the researcher, can't do the content analysis ourselves, right? We have to get research assistants to do it for us, and they can't know the hypothesis behind the study, if there is one. So this video is about using research assistants to do this. There's certain ways to manage that process. So first of all, if you are going to use human coders instead of using a computer, you're going to want to use more than one coder. 2 or 3, no more, should do the trick. So why can't we just use one coder? If you just use one coder, they probably have a bias because they are human. And even if you walk them through how to code for level of pessimism or level of political bias towards candidates, even if you walk them through the rules that you've written out, they might interpret those coding instructions in a certain light. And if you only have one person doing this, then their bias is just baked into the coding scheme. So you want to have more than one person. But you also don't want to have lots of coders. If you have 4, 5, 6 coders, that sounds like it's good. Oh, there's lots of people doing this. But they all need to be on the same page when it comes to the coding instructions. Remember, they're all going to follow instructions for what it means to give a speech a 1 on a negativity scale or a 1 on a pessimism scale. It's really hard to get more than 2 or 3 people on the same page for how to interpret the rules that the researcher has written down to go about the coding. Most content analyses use 2 research assistants for this process, although I've occasionally seen 3. Okay, so here are the additional steps for managing human research assistants as coders. There's a whole process to this madness. So the first thing that you do is you get all the coders, well, 2, that's I said there should be 2, into the same room. So get them into the same room. I've done this before. I've been a coder. After you get them into the same room, you have to walk them through what features they're going to code for. So you would say, we're going to go through the general election speeches by politicians running for president, and you're going to code them for how pessimistic or optimistic they sound. And there's a set of rules that we're going to go through. And in the rule book, because there's an actual written rule book that you have to write out for how to do this. Let's say that you're going to have the research assistants give each speech a code that goes from 1 to 5. 1 is the most pessimistic and 5 is the most optimistic. You have to walk them through what a 1 symbolizes. So a 1 means this. It's really, really, really overwhelmingly negative in a very overt way, whereas a 5 means this. So you walk them through the features that they are going to code and what each number indicates in that coding scheme. And then you do something called a practice session, where the coders after you've gone over all of these rules, they're going to sit in separate rooms or on opposite sides of the room that they're in, and they're going to do a little bit of practice coding. Maybe they'll code a few speeches or a few news articles. When they're done doing that, you're going to bring them back together and they're going to go over the answers that they gave. So maybe this person over here says, I gave this speech a 1 and this is why I did it. And the other coder says, oh, well, I gave it a 2 and this is why I gave it a 2. If you have really small discrepancies in how people are coding, it's not that big of a deal, but you need to be aware that sometimes there are big discrepancies. So in the practice session, when there is a discrepancy, you guys are going to explain why you gave it the code that you did. And then if it's necessary, you have to clarify the rules so that everyone understands them. If someone's giving a speech a 1 for really, really pessimistic, and someone else is giving it a 4 for fairly optimistic, that means the code rules are not written in a very obvious and clear way, right? The researcher needs to clarify, well, it's impossible for it to get a 4 because it fits the description of a 2 for the following reasons. So there's a lot of back and forth dialogue between the researcher and the coders to figure out why there are discrepancies in their practice coding and getting them back on the same page. This is what a 1 means, this is what a 2 means, etc., etc. Once you guys do that, you can send the research assistants back out into the world to do the full coding assignment. Now they're going to code everything, not just a small little practice sample. And they're going to code the same content. So 2 different people, maybe 3, but usually 2 different people coding the same speeches, following the same rule book for how they're supposed to code it. When they are done, everyone sends their coding into the researchers. You can email it to the researcher. You say, these are all the codes that I gave the speeches. These are all the codes that I gave these speeches. And the researcher does something called checking the intercoder reliability or the inter-rater reliability. That's a research phrase. It means the level of consistency between the coders who are using the same rules to code the same content. So at the end of the day, are they agreeing? Are they saying, yes, this one was pessimistic? Yes, this one was optimistic. How much agreement is there between the coders? If there is a substantial amount of disagreement, that is not good, right? You have to do a lot of this over. If there's a lot of agreement, that's a good thing. Sometimes this is done in percentages. We usually like to have at least 80% agreement between the coders. That means the rules were written clearly, and when they went to go code the content, it was obvious that yes, this speech gets a 2, yes, this speech gets a 5, or whatever it is. There's a lot of agreement between different people who are independently coding. So let's go over some of the pros and cons of this stuff. If you're using human coders, the benefits of this are that humans are really good at detecting nuance better than some computer programs. So in the last video, I mentioned some programs are really great at understanding what sounds negative or what sounds positive in speeches or news media. But think about it. What if you wanted to code news media content for sarcasm? A computer might be able to pick up on certain words that sound sarcastic, but human beings are going to be better at picking that up. So if the feature that you're coding is sarcasm, that's something that has some nuance, and humans are going to be really good at picking up on that in ways that computers can't. But the drawbacks of human coders are obvious, right? There's human error. It can be really difficult to interpret the rules for how to code something exactly the same between 2 people. I often get the question, if you're coding for media bias, is it good to use someone who has a liberal perspective and someone else who's a coder who has a conservative perspective so that they sort of keep each other in check? I have seen people do that in content analysis. You don't have to. If the rules are written really rigidly and really clearly, they should be able to make a determination that sort of gets their bias out because they're following a rule book. But you can certainly do something like that. But there is human error involved. There always is going to be. And also, humans can only code so much content. We talked about how computers are really great because you can code thousands and thousands of pieces of content, be it speeches, interviews, book chapters, pieces of legislation, whatever it is. Humans can't do that much, but what they can do is find nuance and bring human capabilities that computers do not have. So those are some of the pros and cons of this research method. It's a little bit more confusing to explain online rather than in person. So if you guys want me to make a third video, I can certainly do that to sort of rehash another example for you. Although I think only a few people in the class are going to be doing this type of analysis for their final paper. So that's it for content analysis. And in the upcoming videos, I'll try to do some fun things with my dog and music to get the ball rolling here to make things a little more fun. So I'll see you guys later.